The city was alive with its usual frenetic energy as Elon Musk's motorcade rolled through the heart of downtown. The sun beat down relentlessly, casting long shadows between the towering skyscrapers. The convoy of black SUVs moved in perfect synchrony, a symbol of precision, wealth, and power, with police sirens blaring in the distance as the traffic came to a halt. Pedestrians on the sidewalk stopped to watch, some curious, others entranced by the spectacle of the former CEO of Tesla and SpaceX in town for an important global summit. Musk, now a global ambassador for technology and philanthropy, had long been accustomed to the hustle of life at the top. Yet, as the motorcade crawled through the busy intersection, something caught his eye, a figure standing at the edge of the crowd, almost invisible amidst the chaos of the city. At first glance, it appeared to be just another panhandler, one of the many who dotted the urban landscape, attempting to catch the attention of passers-by with pleas for help. But this child was different. He was standing there, holding a crumpled piece of cardboard with a simple message scrawled on it, "Please stop." "I need help." The boy, perhaps 10 or 11, was small and scrappy. His clothes were tattered, an oversized hoodie that looked like it had been through years of wear, stained with dirt, and shoes barely holding together. His face, though smudged and weary, held an expression of quiet determination. It wasn't the usual resignation one might expect from someone in his situation. Instead, his eyes were focused, resolute, as though he were waiting for someone to notice him. Musk's attention was drawn immediately. His sharp eyes, used to processing information at a rapid pace, paused. He looked away from the typical scenes of the city, the swarming crowd, and the blurred images of passers-by to fixate on the boy. For a moment, the world outside the SUV felt distant. It was as if time itself had slowed. His aides, sitting beside him in the vehicle, noticed his shift in focus and followed his gaze. One of them dismissed the sight almost immediately, suggesting that the boy was just another street vendor or beggar. But Musk, ever the unconventional thinker, wasn't satisfied with this explanation. His curiosity had been piqued in a way he couldn't ignore. He felt a strange pull, an instinct to act on something beyond business deals, beyond the usual matters that consumed his day. Without hesitation, he gave the order to stop the motorcade. The SUV screeched to a halt, and the vehicles behind it came to a sudden standstill. Secret Service agents immediately went into action, their eyes scanning the surroundings for potential threats. Yet Musk remained calm, unaffected by the usual tensions of security detail. He looked at the boy once again and made his decision. As the doors of the SUV swung open, Musk stepped out into the chaos of the street. The usual murmur of the crowd turned into hushed whispers. People, recognizing who he was, began to circle around, some in disbelief, others in awe. Musk was no stranger to the public eye, but today something felt different. He walked towards the boy, his towering figure cutting through the crowd like a wave. The boy stood frozen for a moment, startled by the sudden attention, dropping his sign as he took a hesitant step back. The crowd parted slightly as Musk closed the gap, his presence now commanding but not intimidating. Musk stopped a few feet away from the boy, his gaze softening as he took in the boy's nervous posture. The boy hesitated for a moment, but then looked up at Musk, his eyes flickering between hope and fear. There was a moment of silence, broken only by the distant hum of the city around them. Musk crouched slightly, bringing himself closer to the boy's level. He could see the dirt on the boy's face, the tiredness in his eyes, but there was also something else, a quiet, unspoken resilience. Musk's usual demeanor was cool and composed, but in this moment he let his curiosity take over, his sharp business mind replaced by a rare moment of empathy. The boy, nervous but determined, gathered his courage and spoke. He had been waiting for hours, hoping that Musk's motorcade would pass by. With a shaking hand, he had written a letter, and this was his chance to make his voice heard. The letter was simple, its contents heavy with emotion. It was about his father, a man who had served in the military and fought in the Middle East, only to return home and fall ill. The boy's family had lost everything. His father had died, and now it was just him and his mother trying to survive without a home. The moment Musk read the boy's letter, the world around him seemed to shrink. His gaze flickered over the crumpled envelope, his mind processing the words that were so carefully written, despite the boy's obvious hardship. Musk's usual response to situations like this was action, and this time it was no different. He handed the letter back to his aide, his jaw tight with determination. He had been moved by the boy's courage, by his refusal to accept the hand he had been dealt. As the crowd looked on, Musk placed a reassuring hand on the boy's shoulder and turned to the waiting convoy. "Let's go see your mum," he said, his voice calm but firm. The crowd murmured in surprise and admiration. Musk's Secret Service agents quickly swept into action, securing the area, their radios crackling with updates as the motorcade resumed its journey. The moment was far from over. It was just the beginning of something much larger, a story that would unfold in ways no one could have predicted. As the CFE door closed behind Musk and the boy, a new chapter of compassion, action, and advocacy was about to be written. Musk knew that what he had just witnessed wasn't just the story of one boy, it was a representation of a much larger issue that needed attention. As the motorcade moved forward, Musk's thoughts were already racing, thinking of what could be done to help not just this family, but countless others like them. The moment would resonate with him long after the day's summit had ended. The boy stood on the corner of a busy intersection, a figure out of place in the middle of the bustling city streets. His clothes, worn and threadbare, clung loosely to his frail frame. A large hoodie, several sizes too big, enveloped his small body, its sleeves hanging past his hands, stained with dirt and wear. The hoodie, once probably a vibrant color, now appeared as if it had been through 1,000 storms, the fabric faded and stretched from repeated washing. His shoes, mismatched and barely holding together, seemed to struggle to serve their purpose, the soles threatening to come off with every step he took. The boy's face was a portrait of hardship. His features were soft, as one would expect from a child his age, but the dirt smeared across his cheeks made it hard to fully see the innocence behind his tired eyes. His hair, a mop of unruly brown curls, framed his face in a wild mess, giving him a rugged appearance that belied his years. There was a certain toughness in his expression, a quiet determination that spoke volumes about the life he had already lived, despite his young age. The city's noise swirled around him, cars honking, people shouting, but he stood there, seemingly unaffected, eyes fixed on the vehicles passing by. It was as if he had seen enough of the world's chaos to know how to tune it out and wait for what he hoped would come next. He held a cardboard sign in his hands, the edges worn and frayed. The sign, hastily written in thick, uneven letters, bore a simple yet heartbreaking message: "Please stop. I need help." The words, although straightforward, carried a weight that seemed to anchor him to that spot on the sidewalk. The boy was not just asking for help, he was asking to be seen, to be noticed, to be acknowledged by the world around him that had long ignored the struggles he faced every day. As the motorcade approached, the boy remained unmoving, his eyes focused on the black CVs rolling by, hoping, praying even, that someone would stop. His small, determined figure stood in stark contrast to the sleek, impersonal cars passing him. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath, the city's relentless pace briefly slowing down, as if the boy's silent plea had become a part of the rhythm of the day. His hands, gripping the sign tightly, began to tremble slightly, the paper soft from the hours it had been clutched. Yet, his resolve never wavered. There were countless others like him in the city, homeless, ignored, or dismissed, but something about this moment felt different. Perhaps it was the quiet dignity in his posture, or the rawness of his message, that caught the attention of one particular onlooker. Elon Musk's eyes, sharp and accustomed to observing the world through a lens of problem-solving and innovation, were drawn to the boy like a magnet. The usual stream of thoughts, dominated by numbers, ventures, and projects, seemed to fade as the child's plight surfaced in front of him. The boy's plea, simple as it was, told a deeper story of desperation. A story of a life marred by hardship, of a family struggling against the tides of fate. Musk's attention was not just captured by the boy's words, but by the silent narrative written in the boy's eyes and the way his small frame stood firm against the chaos of the world. He was not asking for charity, he was asking for a chance, for a glimmer of hope that someone, anyone, might help his family out of the darkness they had found themselves in. Though the world seemed indifferent to him, the boy did not move, standing tall against the elements, as if he were determined to make sure his voice was heard. His sign, ragged as it appeared, represented more than a cry for help. It was an act of courage. The courage to face the vastness of the city, to stand alone on a street corner, hoping that someone would see him, truly see him, and respond. In that moment, the boy became a symbol, not just of poverty or hardship, but of resilience. His presence, though small, began to grow in significance. The crowd around him continued to rush by, oblivious to his quiet stand. The cars continued to zoom past, the noise, the hustle, the pace all continuing as if nothing had changed. But for one brief instant, the boy, his makeshift sign held with trembling hands, became a beacon, a silent call that reverberated through the noise and the rush, a call to someone who might, just might, stop and listen. This wasn't just a moment of asking for help, it was a quiet act of defiance against the forces that had pushed him to this point, against the systems that ignored him, against a world that seemed indifferent. And as the motorcade came closer, it was as if fate itself had stopped to take notice. The boy's eyes, wide and anxious, followed the black SUVs, hoping that the world might change for him, even if just for a moment. The motorcade continued its slow procession through the busy streets, its sleek black SUVs cutting through the city's pulse with the precision of a well-oiled machine. Inside the lead vehicle, Elon Musk sat, his eyes scanning the surroundings through the tinted windows, taking in the chaos of the bustling city, the distant sounds of honking horns and the muted chatter of pedestrians. His mind, typically filled with plans and ideas for his companies, was momentarily distracted when something outside the window caught his attention. The boy, standing on the corner, held up his cardboard sign. It was a simple plea, "Please stop, I need help," but to Musk, it felt like a deeper call, a call for change, for someone to take notice. For a brief moment, the world outside the SUV seemed to slow, as if the noise and movement of the city had faded into the background. Musk's usual quick thinking and decisiveness, honed by years of navigating complex situations in business, kicked in. He wasn't just passing by. Something about the boy's stillness in the chaos of the world made Musk stop, made him rethink his next move. The world had grown accustomed to Musk's unconventional approaches, whether in space travel, electric cars, or artificial intelligence. But this moment was different. It wasn't about innovation or technological advancement. It was about something far more personal: human connection. Musk, known for his sharp intellect and his ability to move quickly in the business world, felt an unfamiliar tug at his conscience. The boy was just a child, alone in the chaos, asking for help in the only way he knew how. In that instant, Musk knew what needed to be done. He didn't give a second thought to the complexities of security or the potential risks involved. In a world where every decision was calculated, where every move was weighed against the cost of time and safety, Musk made an abrupt choice. Without hesitation, he ordered the motorcade to stop. The screech of the tires on the asphalt echoed through the street, a sharp contrast to the hum of the city as the convoy came to an immediate halt. Secret Service agents leapt into action, scanning the surroundings, their eyes darting over the crowd, prepared for any potential threat. But Musk wasn't thinking about security in that moment. Stepping out of the vehicle, Musk felt the weight of the city's gaze upon him. The usual hum of the motorcade's power and prestige had faded into the background. Instead, he focused on the boy, standing alone in the middle of a crowd that hadn't noticed him at all. Musk, towering over him, crouched down, bringing himself to the child's level, as if to remind himself that in this moment, this was not about power, wealth, or status. It was about something far simpler. He reached out, his hand extending toward the boy. Musk's presence, typically commanding and larger than life, now softened, his eyes intent on the child in front of him. The boy, startled at first, seemed unsure of what was happening. But there was a flicker of recognition in his eyes, a spark of hope, as if he had finally been seen. Musk didn't rush the moment. He didn't push through the crowd to achieve a goal. Instead, he allowed the silence to linger, the space between them charged with a connection that needed no words. The boy, trembling but resolute, handed Musk the crumpled envelope he had written his letter in. Musk took the letter with care, reading its words in the dim light filtering through the street. He paused as the gravity of the boy's words sank in. This wasn't just a plea for help, it was a testament to a family's brokenness, to the struggles of a father who had given everything for his country and returned to find himself forgotten. Musk's jaw tightened as he processed the raw emotion in the boy's letter. The world seemed to fall away as the letter's message resonated deeply with Musk, a realization that this was not just another request for charity, it was a call to action. He didn't just listen, he took immediate steps. The decision was swift, instinctive, and grounded in a rare moment of clarity. Musk turned, his voice steady, but with a sense of resolve that was unmistakable. His presence commanded attention, but it was his compassion that truly stood out. He reached out, not just with a promise, but with a genuine intention to change the course of the boy's life, to help him and his family, to ensure that their story would not be forgotten. In that moment, Musk's decision wasn't about political gain or media attention, it was about something far more profound. It was about showing a young boy that he was seen, that his plea for help had been heard, and that his world in some small way would change. The crowd that had gathered around them continued to watch, some filming the interaction, others speechless in the presence of such a rare, uncalculated act of kindness. Musk didn't care about the attention. His focus remained on the boy, the letter, and the mother who was waiting for them at the shelter. In the midst of the chaos of the city, Musk had found a moment of clarity, a reminder that the most important thing in the world was not his legacy or his empire, but the lives of those who were suffering in silence. The letter was crumpled and worn, the edges curled from the boy's tight grip, yet it seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. As Elon Musk unfolded it with careful hands, the faded ink revealed the raw vulnerability of its message, each shaky letter tracing a story of loss and desperation. The handwriting was uneven, as if written in a rush, the pen trembling at each word, but there was a clarity in the words themselves that made the letter impossible to ignore. It spoke of a father who had served in the military, someone who had given everything for a cause greater than himself. The boy's father had fought in the Middle East, a hero who had returned home with the weight of war on his shoulders. His health had deteriorated after his return, a casualty of the invisible wounds that so many soldiers carried with them. He was no longer the strong, proud man he once was, unable to work and provide for his family. The government, which had called on him to serve, had abandoned him in his time of need. The boy described the painful reality that followed. The loss of their home, the slow disintegration of their once stable life, and the suffocating feeling of helplessness that now defined their existence. He wrote with the innocence of a child who still believed that reaching out to someone with power could make a difference. In his letter, he pleaded not just for help but for acknowledgement. His father had always spoken of Elon Musk, of his dedication to people like them, people who were forgotten, who had slipped through the cracks of a system that promised them everything and delivered nothing. The boy's words were simple, but the sentiment behind them was anything but. He didn't ask for riches or grand gestures. He asked for help in the form of recognition, for someone to see their struggle and do something about it. His request was not one of desperation, but of hope. He wrote as if he knew that the person reading his letter had the power to change his family's fate. In the final lines, the boy shared a painful truth. His father, a soldier, a hero, had passed away 2 months ago. The grief that lay beneath those words was palpable, but what struck Musk the hardest was the quiet strength with which the boy wrote about it. Despite the pain, there was no bitterness, no anger, just a plea for dignity, for recognition of the sacrifice his father had made. The letter wasn't just a cry for help, it was a testament to the resilience of a young boy who had seen more hardship than many could comprehend, yet still clung to the belief that someone out there would care enough to listen. As Musk read the last line, the boy's words seemed to echo in his mind long after the paper was folded and handed back. The letter was a symbol of the countless untold stories of families forgotten by the very system they had supported. And in that moment, Musk knew he couldn't just walk away. The boy's story would not be left behind. Elon Musk stood motionless for a moment after reading the letter, its weight pressing down on him. The words etched in shaky ink seemed to reverberate in his mind, their simplicity masking the profound depth of the boy's plea. He had read countless letters, proposals, and requests in his life, many asking for money, others for attention. But this one was different. It wasn't just a call for help, it was a plea for dignity, for recognition of a family's sacrifice. The story of a father who had fought for his country, only to be forgotten by it, was a harsh reminder of the gap between the promises made and the reality that followed. Musk's brow furrowed as the enormity of the situation began to settle in. The boy's story was one that echoed across countless others, families torn apart by war, illness, and neglect, their struggles ignored by a system too vast to notice the individuals it was meant to serve. In that moment, the business magnate, known for his quick decisions and calculated moves, found himself at a crossroads. The usual problems Musk dealt with were far removed from such human suffering, yet something within him refused to ignore this boy's plea. This wasn't just a moment of charity, it was an opportunity to right a wrong, to give voice to those who had been silenced by the weight of bureaucracy and forgetfulness. Musk could see the boy standing there, clutching his knees, eyes downcast in a mixture of hope and fear, but there was something else there too: determination. Musk, never one to sit idly by, made his decision. He turned to his aides, handing over the letter and speaking with the quiet resolve. The wheels of action began to turn behind the scenes, but Musk's focus remained fixed on the boy. His actions were deliberate, but his expression softened, as though he were acknowledging something larger than himself, something greater than any technological breakthrough or corporate achievement. It was the realization that, in this moment, he had the power to change the life of this young boy, and in doing so, he could begin to address the systemic failures that had left so many like him in the dark. Musk knelt down beside the boy, his towering figure suddenly seeming smaller in the presence of this child's quiet bravery. He placed a hand on the boy's shoulder, a gesture that conveyed more than words could say. The promise he made wasn't just about giving them shelter or food, it was about ensuring that no one, especially those who had sacrificed so much, would be forgotten again. This was not a fleeting moment of empathy, it was a commitment to a cause. Musk understood that this encounter, though small in the grand scope of his life, would ripple out and touch many others who had long been overlooked by the systems they had trusted. Musk's promise, born out of that moment of human connection, wasn't just for the boy in front of him, it was a promise to give others like him the attention they deserved, the recognition they had earned. And in that promise there was a seed planted for a larger movement, one that would continue to grow beyond this street corner. The moment Elon Musk stepped out of the SUV and approached the young boy on the corner of the street, it was a scene unlike any other. The usual media circus that followed Musk was nowhere to be seen, yet somehow, the quiet act of kindness became a spectacle of its own. As Musk knelt down and listened to the boy's story, the crowd around them slowly began to grow, people pulling out their phones to capture the unfolding interaction. At first it seemed like just another instance of a wealthy figure doing something charitable, but the emotional weight of the moment quickly shifted it into something far more significant. The boy's raw honesty, coupled with Musk's unexpected decision to stop his motorcade and take immediate action, resonated with everyone who witnessed it. Within minutes, videos of the encounter began circulating online. Social media platforms buzzed as users shared clips of Musk's compassionate gesture. Hashtags like MuskHelps and Leomandalon began trending worldwide, sparking a wave of support for the boy's family and the broader issue of veterans' families left behind. What began as a small moment of personal compassion soon became a viral sensation. The footage, raw and unfiltered, captured the heart of the story, an unlikely meeting between a billionaire and a boy in need, one that transcended the usual headlines of corporate news or political scandals. It was a human moment, pure and unmediated, and it struck a chord with millions. As the video spread, news outlets picked up the story, airing the footage repeatedly and interviewing experts, veterans, and advocates for military families. The attention wasn't just focused on Musk, it was on the boy's father, a soldier who had served his country only to return home forgotten by the system. The emotional weight of the story shifted the conversation from one of mere charity to a deeper, more critical look at how society treats its veterans and their families. What had been a single act of kindness snowballed into a global discussion about systemic neglect and the power of one voice to spark change. The boy, once a nameless face in a crowd, was now a symbol of resilience, his letter and plea capturing the attention of governments, charities, and individuals alike. Donations flooded in for the Veterans Family Rescue Fund that Musk had quickly initiated, inspired by the boy's courage to reach out. The viral impact of the encounter was not just felt online, it rippled through communities, inspiring others to share their own stories of struggle and perseverance. People who had long felt invisible now saw the opportunity to raise their voices, motivated by the recognition Musk had brought to this single, poignant moment. What Musk had unknowingly done was create a spark that ignited a movement, a collective effort to address the issues facing veterans and their families. The viral nature of the story, fueled by a shared sense of empathy and justice, set the stage for significant change. It was more than a moment captured on video, it was a pivotal shift in the way people viewed the role of wealth and influence in addressing societal problems. The video of Musk and the boy would not just fade away, it had created a lasting impact that would be felt far beyond that street corner, continuing to inspire conversations, actions, and change long after the viral moment had passed.